2 years ago, it started with rain. Talia Adebayo walked along a flooded street in Surulere, her cheap slippers squelching through puddles, her threadbare scarf plastered to her head. People hurried past, shielding themselves from the storm, barely sparing her a glance. Her handbag strap was torn, her anchor skirt clung to her knees, but she held her head high. To the world, she looked like a nobody, just another Lagos girl, fighting through the city's chaos. But Talia wasn't just anyone. She was the daughter of Chief Adebayo, Africa's richest industrialist, an heiress to a vast empire of oil, real estate, and global influence. Yet here she was, invisible. A silver Prado SUV slowed beside her. The window rolled down. "Hey, are you okay?" came a voice, calm, confident, curious. Talia looked up into the eyes of Remy Adeyemi. He wore a clean white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, the rain dancing off his car roof. He looked like someone with dreams larger than his wallet, the kind that Lagos breeds: bold, determined, hungry for greatness. "I'm fine," Talia said with a polite smile. "You shouldn't be walking in this storm," he replied. "Let me drop you." For a moment she hesitated, then she nodded and got in. The car smelled like fresh leather and ambition. They talked as he drove. He told her he was trying to build a logistics business, hustling to get contracts, living in a modest apartment with 3 cousins. He didn't ask much about her life, assumed she was a struggling tailor. And Talia let him believe it. She liked the way he looked at her, not as a title, not as a trophy, but as a woman. What began as a simple ride turned into conversations over akara and pap, long walks around Yaba, quiet evenings under dim bulbs and mosquito nets. For the first time, Talia wasn't Chief Adebayo's daughter, she was just Talia. 6 months later, Remy proposed. Not with a diamond ring, but with calloused hands and a heart full of fire. "I don't have much," he said, "but I will protect you. I will build something for us." Talia smiled. Not because she needed protection, not because she lacked wealth, but because she saw in him a dreamer who made her feel seen, not for her name, but her soul. They married quietly, no cameras, no headlines. She moved into his small flat, cooked with him, helped iron his shirts before his pitch meetings. But what Remy didn't know was that behind every success he celebrated, every approved loan, every investor callback, Talia had whispered to the right people. A text to her godfather at Zenith Bank. A favor from her cousin at Blue Palm Capital. She never took credit. She let Remy shine. Because she wanted him to feel like he built his dream. Because real love, she thought, wasn't about control, it was about belief. Every time Remy came home with good news, she clapped quietly in the kitchen. Every time he hugged her, calling her his lucky charm, she smiled through the ache of silence. But as the clouds cleared and his business rose, so did her quiet fear. Would love built on a lie ever survive the truth? Because even crowns, when hidden too long, begin to rust. And so the story began not in wealth, but in rain. The small flat in Surulere began to feel smaller as Remy's ambitions grew bigger. It started with the little things. His meetings ran longer. His calls became more confidential. He swapped his old shirts for fitted suits, started using words like leverage, valuation, and executive footprint. Talia noticed the change not just in his clothes, but in his eyes. He laughed less. He didn't always see her. Still, she smiled and ironed his clothes. Still, she left meals warm in the oven. Still, she prayed for him. Then came the contract, the biggest yet. Remy burst into the living room one night, breathless. "Talia, I got it," he shouted, waving a document in the air. "Obasi Group, N500 million logistics deal. This is it, babe. This is the breakthrough." Talia blinked slowly, her heart soft. She knew it was coming. Just 3 days earlier, she had made the call. Chief Adebayo, her father, had been on the line. His voice, as always, was calm, cautious. "So this is the man you married?" "Yes, Daddy," she whispered. "Please, just this one favor." A pause, then. "You still plan to return after 2 years?" "Yes." "Then fine. I will sign the recommendation letter. But only this once." And with that, Remy's dream was sealed behind doors he didn't even know existed. But when he returned that night, grinning, holding the contract like a trophy, Talia said nothing. She just clapped. "I'm proud of you," she whispered, and meant it. She didn't tell him that Obasi Group had only considered his proposal because of an anonymous nudge from someone whose last name could open vaults. She wanted him to feel like a king, not a project. In the weeks that followed, Remy soared. Magazine features, new cars, a fancier apartment on the island. His social circle grew, and so did the distance between them. He now dined with Lagos elites and used her name less and less. "You won't understand, babe," he said one evening when she asked about a pitch deck. "It's high-level strategy." Talia smiled faintly. The woman who once sat in boardrooms with her father and spoke fluent corporate finance was now considered just a stay-at-home wife. But she held her silence not out of weakness, but choice. She would wait for their second anniversary. Wait to tell him everything. She imagined it. Dinner under the city lights, wine glasses clinking, her hands slipping a folder across the table. "Here's the truth," she would say. "Here's who I am. Here's what I gave up to be with you." But dreams don't always unfold the way we hope. One night, as they sat in silence watching TV, Remy's phone buzzed. He smiled and turned it face down. "Talia," he said suddenly, "have I told you about Bianca?" She looked at him. "No. She's been helping me connect with serious people. Her father has some influence with Adebayo Holdings. She's sharp. She even helped with the Obasi deal, I think." Talia felt her chest tighten. She had never met this Bianca Okonkwo. But her name and the glint in Remy's eyes made her stomach twist. He thought another woman pulled the strings she had silently held for him. And worse, he was proud of her for it. Talia said nothing. She simply stood, walked to the kitchen, and stared at her reflection in the kettle. She was the daughter of power, the woman behind the scenes, the wife who had stitched a crown from silence. But now someone else was wearing it, and her heart whispered the first cracks of truth. He doesn't know who you are, and he might not care when he finds out. Talia stood before the mirror in the new apartment on Lekki Phase 1, adjusting the blue satin dress Remy once said made her look like a queen. It was their second anniversary, the night she had chosen to tell him everything, the night she would stop hiding. Her curls framed her face softly, her gold earrings simple but elegant, her heart beat with cautious hope. Maybe he still remembered who they were. Maybe tonight he'd see the woman who stood beside him before the wealth, before the deals, before Bianca. The message had come earlier. Dinner at the Sky Lounge, just us. Short, cold, but she chose to believe in its sincerity. When she arrived at the rooftop restaurant, Lagos glimmered below like spilled diamonds. The air was crisp, the jazz soft, but Remy didn't stand when she walked in. He didn't smile. He just sipped his wine and nodded. Talia. She sat, her voice gentle. Happy anniversary, Remy. He looked at her, his expression unreadable. Then he exhaled deeply and placed his glass on the table. Talia, let's stop pretending. Her heart paused. Pretending? I didn't come here to celebrate. I came to talk about what's next for me. She blinked, confused. For you? I've outgrown this, he said simply. This life, us. I've stepped into a new level now. You don't fit in anymore. His words were like broken glass slipping into her skin. I've been meeting people, real people. Bianca, for instance. She's elegant, educated, connected. Her father knows Chief Adebayo himself. Talia's fingers trembled under the table. She's the reason I got that Obasi deal, Talia. Not luck, not you. He didn't see the flicker in her eyes. Bianca had lied, and Remy, the man she had given her soul to, had believed it. My mother agrees, he added. You never belonged in this life. You're not my class anymore. Silence swallowed the rooftop. Only the distant horns of the city below kept her grounded. He stood abruptly, adjusting his jacket. The divorce papers will come this week. Let's not drag it. Then he walked away, leaving Talia alone on their anniversary, at a table set for two with only truth and heartbreak for company. The waiter came. She waved him away. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes, but she held them back. Not here. Not for him. She had dressed tonight to tell him who she truly was, the heiress who became a tailor for love. But instead he had crowned another woman with her achievements and called her unworthy. As the minutes ticked on and the seat across from her remained empty, Talia sat still, broken. Yes, but not defeated. And when a calm voice interrupted her silence, she turned to face a stranger in a navy blue suit. "Is this seat taken?" She blinked. "Sorry? I saw what happened. I didn't mean to intrude. I'm Michael Obasi." Her breath caught. The Obasi Group? Her father's ally? He extended a hand with quiet respect. "I need someone to help me escape an arranged marriage to, ironically, the same Bianca. I'd like to offer you a deal, a 1-year contract. Be my wife in public. I'll compensate you. No strings, no expectations." Talia stared. Was the universe mocking her or handing her a lifeline? She whispered, "Why me?" Michael smiled faintly. "Because you look like someone who just lost everything, and so did I." And there, in the ruins of a love she built with her own hands, Talia Adebayo met the man who would unknowingly help her rebuild not just her name, but her power. A crown had been stolen from her, but destiny had just handed her the throne. The next morning, a knock on the door echoed through the flat like a final verdict. Talia opened it slowly. There stood Remy Adeyemi, freshly shaved, smug in a navy suit, and beside him, in 6-inch heels and a smug smile, was Bianca Okonkwo. Her makeup flawless, her perfume flooding the hallway like a challenge. Without a word, Remy handed Talia a brown envelope. "Let's not drag this." Bianca stepped inside like she owned the place, her eyes scanning the small but tidy living room. "You live here?" she said with a laugh that dripped with disdain. "I expected more. After all that humble wife performance." Talia said nothing. Her silence was no longer weakness. It was armor. Bianca smirked and circled the room. "No wonder he got bored. There's nothing here. No class, no elegance. Just iron shirts and faded curtains." Remy looked away. "This isn't personal, Talia. It's just reality." Bianca leaned in, voice low and sharp. "Don't cry now. Maybe you can come clean my pool someday." Talia didn't blink. She opened the envelope, pulled out the papers, and signed without a word. The sound of the pen scratching against the paper felt like nails carving freedom into stone. No ring, no riches, no name, they thought. But what they didn't know was that Talia had never needed any of that to rise. That same afternoon, she took out the business card Michael Obasi had handed her. Her message was short. "I'm ready." The city registry office was silent and clean, smelling of new paint and forgotten vows. Michael stood tall, dressed in charcoal gray. No fanfare, no photographers, just two broken people walking a thin line between necessity and hope. They signed the papers. No emotion, no ceremony. Just a signature that would change everything. "I guess we're married now," he said with a small smile. Talia nodded. "Looks like it." He didn't ask who she really was, and she didn't tell him. Not yet. Before they parted ways, he said, "Call me when you need me." And she replied, "You too." They walked away, strangers tethered by a contract and secrets buried beneath the surface. That night, Talia didn't go back to her father. She didn't beg for restoration. She didn't hide in shame. Instead, she vanished, melted into the veins of Lagos, changed her number, closed her old accounts. She took only what she needed: a sketchbook, a sewing machine, a small rented studio space in Surulere, and her will. And in that quiet disappearance, a new name was born: Talia. The mysterious designer whose bold colors and soulful patterns soon rippled through the underground fashion scene like a secret fire. No interviews, no selfies. Just art that whispered pain, resilience, and rebirth. Buyers started calling. Stylists whispered. Blogs speculated. but no one knew her face. And that was how she wanted it for now. From the shadows, she stitched power into thread. She bled grace into every hem. She turned betrayal into silk. Talia didn't seek revenge. She was becoming her own empire. And when Stonebridge Group, one of Africa's most powerful investment firms, reached out to invest in her brand, they didn't ask for her story. They asked for her vision. And so the woman who once hid in a rainstorm had now become the storm itself, silent, steady, and destined. Because sometimes silence isn't surrender. It's strategy. The Obasi Stevens Gala in Victoria Island was the city's biggest event of the year. Cameras flashed. Strings of fairy lights danced above red carpets. Every major designer, investor, and celebrity circled the venue like royalty. And in the center of it all stood Bianca Okonkwo, draped in an extravagant gold gown, lips painted blood red, hand wrapped proudly around Remy Adeyemi's arm. She smiled at every camera. She soaked in every compliment. Because for the last few months, Bianca had been lying, and no one questioned it. She told the press that she was the face behind Talia, the anonymous designer taking Africa by storm. She signed endorsement deals, gave half-cryptic interviews, and posted stylized behind-the-scenes shots on Instagram, all staged, all stolen. Remy played along. He believed her. Why wouldn't he? She was beautiful, bold, and brilliant, and now, supposedly, the mystery woman everyone wanted to work with. "This is our night," he whispered in her ear as they walked into the gala. But it wasn't. Because in a quiet moment, through the side entrance, wearing a simple but striking black gown, Talia Adebayo stepped into the room. Her hair was tied back, her face calm. Beside her stood Michael Obasi in a crisp black suit. "Talia," he had said earlier that evening, "you don't owe anyone an explanation, but you deserve to be seen, if not for them, then for yourself." So she came, not to scream, not to fight, just to watch, to see how far the lie had gone. But when Lady Ngozi Obasi, Michael's mother, saw her, she gasped audibly. "That girl?" she muttered to her cousin. "The one in the cheap dress? That's who he married?" Bianca spotted Talia and didn't miss a beat. She swept toward her with a sickening smile. "Talia, you're here," she said sweetly. "I would have sent you one of my designs to wear, but I guess you prefer basic." Laughter from the surrounding crowd. Talia's lips didn't move. She looked at Remy, standing beside Bianca, his smirk cocky. Then she said softly, "She's lying." Bianca froze. The room quieted. "She's not Talia," Talia continued, her voice clear but calm. "She didn't make any of the clothes you've seen. She doesn't own the brand." Remy scoffed. "And you do? What are you, Talia? A bitter ex-wife with a measuring tape?" But just then, Michael stepped forward. "She's here with me," he said firmly. "You will speak to her with respect." Still, whispers began. "She's the girl Remy divorced, right? Why is she even here? She looks nothing like a designer." Talia stood still. The very people who praised her anonymously were now mocking her openly because they didn't know they were the same person. Bianca turned to the press. "Don't be ridiculous. I'm the face behind Talia. Everyone knows that." And then the lights dimmed, the stage lit up. A host stepped forward. "Ladies and gentlemen, before tonight's final showcase, the Talia brand has a special announcement." Gasps. Talia stepped onto the stage slowly. Her heels echoed on the hardwood. Her hands held a small leather folder. She turned to the crowd. "My name is Talia Adebayo," she said, voice steady. "I am the founder and designer of Talia." A stunned silence. Bianca laughed nervously. "She's joking, right?" Talia opened the folder. "Here are dated sketches, signed, archived emails, bank payments, and here," she turned as two assistants joined her on stage, "are the original tailors from my Surulere studio. They've never worked with Bianca, only with me." One of them stepped forward. "I've never met this woman," he said, pointing at Bianca. "She came to our office pretending to be Madame's assistant. She asked us to keep quiet." The room erupted. Reporters surged forward. Cameras flashed. A journalist shouted, "Are you saying she's a fraud?" Talia looked directly into the lens. "I'm not saying it," she replied. "I'm proving it." Behind her, Bianca's face crumbled. Remy stood frozen. The lie had collapsed. But Talia didn't gloat. She didn't scream. She simply handed the microphone back, descended the stage, and walked straight into a future she now claimed with pride. Outside, under the soft glow of Lagos night, Michael took her hand gently. "You were brilliant," he whispered. "No," Talia said, finally smiling. "I was honest. That's stronger." The story broke by morning. Bianca Okonkwo exposed as fashion fraud. Real Talia revealed the ex-wife the world mocked. Talia Adebayo, the hidden heiress who stitched power in silence. The internet exploded. Blogs reversed their stance overnight. Investors, once hesitant, now called Talia's new brand legacy-worthy. And for Remy Adeyemi and Bianca, the fall was swift and brutal. Magazine deals were canceled, endorsements withdrawn. Bianca's face trended online this time not as a fashion icon, but as a thief of another woman's story. Even Remy's company stock nosedived. And still, Talia said nothing. No interviews, no bitterness, just movement. She sent quiet thank you notes to those who had believed in her anonymously, including the Stonebridge Group, who had stood by her when others doubted. She didn't seek revenge. She sowed restoration. A few days later, in Banana Island, Chief Adebayo, her father, read the headlines in his morning robe. He hadn't spoken publicly in years, but now he stood before cameras, flanked by security and board members. "I wish to clarify," he said calmly, "that Talia Adebayo, also known as the designer Talia, is my daughter, blood of my blood." Her silence was never weakness. It was wisdom. Across the country, jaws dropped. "The crown she wears," he continued, "was not given. She built it, and I, who once questioned her, now stand behind her fully as father, as ally, as witness." Reporters went wild. Michael Obasi, watching from his office, whispered under his breath, "So this is who she really is." And then he smiled. But not everyone celebrated. In a quiet villa on the outskirts of Lekki, Lanre Obasi, Michael's jealous stepbrother, seethed. "She made you look soft," he told Michael one day, eyes bitter. "You let a divorcee and a fraud ruin your image." Michael responded simply, "No, she saved it." Lanre had been behind the earlier campaign to discredit Talia. Now he had nothing to show but envy. But while enemies burned with shame, Talia rose with grace. She started a scholarship fund for young designers from underserved communities. She sent a handwritten note and a N50 million endowment to Auntie Moyo, her old literature teacher in Ibadan, who had once given her a free sketchbook and whispered, "Dreams stitched in silence can still change the world." But perhaps the boldest move was the delivery of a velvet box to Lady Ngozi Obasi, Michael's mother. Inside, a rare handcrafted Eleanor brooch, one of one. The note read, "Because grace is louder than status, Talia." Lady Ngozi stared at the note for a long time. Then she cried. That same week, Michael took Talia for a walk along the shore near Elegushi. The city behind them buzzed, but here, under the salt-sweet wind, the world stood still. "You've changed everything," he said quietly. "No," she replied. "I just took back what was already mine." He reached for her hand. "I don't want to do this as a contract anymore." She looked at him, truly looked. Not as an arrangement, not as a rescue, but as the man who stood beside her, never above her. He pulled something from his coat pocket, not a ring, not yet just a sketch she had drawn once, folded in the shape of a heart. "This was on your desk the first day I visited your studio," he said. "I've kept it." Her throat tightened. "I don't need Talia. I want you. No more deals, just truth. Just us." And for the first time, Talia didn't hesitate. Because here was a man who didn't fall in love with her story, but with her silence, her strength, her scars. The storm had passed. And in its place stood two people not perfect, but real, ready to begin not with secrets, but with sincerity. The sun was gentle over Lagos, but in a quiet office at the back of a rundown plaza, Remy Adeyemi stared at rejection emails with bloodshot eyes. The man who once hosted investors in glass towers now typed loan applications under a flickering ceiling fan. Everything had vanished. His friends, gone. His investors, gone. Even Bianca? Gone without a backward glance, her final words laced in venom. You used me to climb. I used you to shine. We're even. And now all that remained was silence, the kind that howled at night and mocked in the morning. He turned on the TV one afternoon and froze. Talia Adebayo, in a glowing white and gold gown, stood at a podium at Tafawa Balewa Square, flanked by Chief Adebayo, Stonebridge's CEO, and Lagos state dignitaries. The broadcast banner read, Talia Brand launches Africa-wide mentorship initiative. But what struck Remy most wasn't her title, or her elegance, or the fact that she was now recognized globally. It was the way she stood, calm, rooted, unbothered by applause but graceful in her presence. The world had mocked her, then turned to praise her. She hadn't chased revenge. She'd built legacy. A few days later, Talia stepped out of a press interview in Victoria Island and stopped mid-step. There, standing beside her black SUV, was Remy, thinner, paler, but unmistakably him. He removed his cap slowly. Please, 5 minutes. Talia didn't speak. I was wrong, he said, his voice shaking. I didn't know who you were, what you were. But it wasn't even about your name. You believed in me before anyone else did. Silence. I thought I wanted power, but I walked away from it, from you, and chased a lie. His voice cracked. I never stopped thinking about you. Talia's eyes were calm, not warm, not cold, just final. You left me, she said quietly, for a mask, and I became a mirror. Remy swallowed hard. Is there any part of your heart left for me? She shook her head gently. There isn't. Then she got into her car, shut the door, and drove away, not in anger, but in dignity. Later that week, Talia and Michael stood at a fashion empowerment conference in Paris. Young African designers lined up just to thank her. Talia spoke not about herself, but about grace, about silence, about knowing your worth even when others don't. At the end of the event, Lady Ngozi Obasi rose from the front row, tears in her eyes. I was wrong, she said publicly. I judged you by your name, or lack of it, not by your substance. Behind her, Obasi family members, former critics, even press moguls, bowed their heads in agreement. Talia stepped forward and held the microphone. I forgive you, she said softly, but let it be a lesson. Kindness matters more than class. Dignity is not worn, it is lived. And the ones we mock today might just carry the fire we need tomorrow. The applause that followed wasn't loud for performance. It was loud because it was real. That evening, as golden light washed over the streets of Paris, Michael took Talia's hand. No more shadows, no more contracts, just truth. Just two people rising, side by side. Months had passed since the world learned the name behind the brand. But for Talia Adebayo, it no longer felt like she was being discovered now. She was simply becoming. Her fashion house, Talia, wasn't just a label. It was a movement. Each piece carried stories of pain, silence, healing. Her designs weren't just stitched with thread. They were stitched with truth. Girls in Makoko who once sketched dresses on chalkboards were now enrolled in her design mentorship. Boys in Kaduna who never imagined a world beyond tailoring now interned at her Lagos studio. Across the continent, her story rippled. The quiet heiress who chose humility and rose through heartbreak. One evening after a gala in Marrakesh, Michael Obasi held Talia's hand as they walked along a garden path under hanging lanterns. He paused beneath a flame tree, pulled something from his pocket, not a diamond, but a small ring wrapped in gold thread. Simple, intentional. No contracts, he said gently. No expectations. Just love. If you'll have it. Talia didn't cry. She didn't gasp. She smiled. Because real love doesn't shout. It arrives steady, whole, ready. She nodded once. I will. The wedding was private, a quiet ceremony at a villa in Ikoyi. No press, no spectacle. Just family, friends, and the few who knew the battles they'd won together. Chief Adebayo walked his daughter down the aisle in traditional agbada, pride written across his face. You've carried our name with more honor than I ever did, he whispered before giving her away. Lady Ngozi Obasi, now softened by grace, handed Talia a folded scarf embroidered with her mother's initials. For strength, she said, and because you taught me what it truly looks like. In the months that followed, Talia expanded into Paris, Accra, New York. But with every step, Talia stayed rooted, visiting community schools, sponsoring design programs, sitting on floor mats with apprentices learning to cut their first fabric. She launched a fashion exhibit at the National Museum in Lagos, titled Her Silence Was Her Sword. The centerpiece, her original sketchbook. Beside it, a handwritten note. To every woman who gave when no one clapped. To every heart that broke in private but healed in power. This is yours too. Back in Surulere, in a tiny corner shop, Auntie Moyo hung a framed photograph of Talia with a young girl from the new scholarship program. Underneath, she wrote, she didn't just rise, she reached back. And on the streets once flooded with doubt, where Talia once walked with broken slippers in the rain, now stood a billboard. Talia designed in grace, forged in fire. Her story was no longer whispered. It roared, not with pride but with purpose. Not for revenge but for redemption. Not to prove her name but to show that even when crowns are hidden, queens still rise.